The fabric of self-healing holds memories that your mind has forgotten, but you can release them today. In just a few minutes of sustained pressure and guided breathing, somatic knots begin to release, sighs emerge, and the body registers measurable relief, localized warmth, restored joint mobility, and a breath that finally flows downward. There are 3 zones in your torso where trauma anchors itself as physical density. These areas hold diffuse pain, persistent fatigue, and ongoing creative blockages, even when your mind has already forgotten their origin. Ignoring this hidden intelligence means continuing to try to solve, through thought alone, what only the body's tissue can truly dissolve. Stopping this video before mapping these points is allowing invisible patterns to keep running, just as the complete path to locate, touch, and release each knot is about to open. The code that reorganizes your somatic biography into concrete sensation is about to be revealed. Fascia does not simply cover, it records. Every unprocessed experience is translated into specific density, altered tone, and postural geometry that tells a story without words. What you call chronic stiffness is a living archive operating in layers deeper than explicit memory, a somatic code written in texture and tension. Learning how to read this language allows you to identify exactly where emotional traumas have crystallized and to apply pressure that speaks directly to myofibroblasts and the extracellular matrix. Egyptian temples trained healer priests to map zones of fascial thickening as portals to sealed bodily memories, while Hermetic traditions recognized the physical body as a dense mirror of invisible patterns. Stiffness is not a structural flaw. It is a request for qualified listening, a bodily syntax that the rational mind alone can never decode. This ancient recognition finds precise resonance in the way modern neuroscience describes interoception and autonomic regulation. Hermetic schools taught that dense matter reflects invisible patterns, and that conscious touch, applied with presence, reorganizes both layers at the same time. Alchemists mapped areas of bodily tension as crystallized energetic nodes, places where unprocessed experience had hardened into physical form. The principle was simple and verifiable. When you apply intentional pressure to what has become dense, the subtle layers yield as well, because there is no real separation between structure and energy, only different frequencies within the same web. Interoception is the name neuroscience gives to this process. The brainstem constantly reads the body's internal texture and decides, before conscious thought, whether you are in safe or threatened territory. Polyvagal theory describes how fascial tone shapes that perception, while mechanotransduction explains that slow pressure reorganizes collagen and activates myofibroblasts in a measurable mechanical response. Biotensegrity reveals why a local adjustment redistributes tension throughout the entire structure, just like a tent, where moving a single stake shifts the entire field. There is no coincidence between tradition and laboratory. There is convergence. 2 languages describing the same intelligent web from angles that are finally meeting. There are 3 portals in the torso where somatic memory anchors most intensely. These are zones of convergence between high proprioceptive density, proximity to autonomic nerve plexuses, and ancestral correspondence with energy centers mapped thousands of years ago. The first lives along the axis of the sternum, thymus, and upper diaphragm, a region of emotional protection where the chest tightens in response to rejection, unexpressed grief, or denied affection. When this zone becomes rigid, the breath rises and gets stuck near the clavicle. Air never fully descends, and the sense of inner space disappears. You can check this now. Place the palm of your hand over your sternum and observe whether there is any real movement during inhalation, or if the chest remains still while the shoulders lift in a compensatory effort. The second portal is located in the solar plexus, the band between the navel and the xiphoid appendix. It houses the celiac ganglion, a center of shame and hypervigilance, where attacked identity or violated autonomy crystallize into an invisible armor. When this region is braced, the upper abdomen remains tense even at rest, as if bracing for an impact that never arrives. The internal sensation is of a permanent knot, a contraction that does not release with deep breathing or standard stretching. Gently press about 2 to 3 centimeters above your navel and feel the resistance. If the tissue barely gives and the pain is diffuse, the portal is sealed by active defensive memory. The third portal rests at the base of the skull, between the suboccipital muscles and the atlanto-occipital junction, a knot of cognitive control and rumination kept tense by non-stop mental effort. When this area is contracted, the head leans forward, the gaze never fully rests, and thoughts cycle without true resolution. Slide your fingers down the back of your neck until you reach the base of the skull. If there is localized hardness, sensitivity to light touch, or an inability to relax the area even while lying down, the portal is operating in chronic vigilance mode. These 3 points are not arbitrary anatomical choices. They are places where the body literally stores what the mind has forgotten, translating emotional biography into measurable physical texture. Each portal has a specific somatic signature that reveals which defensive memory is active. Chronic apical breathing signals a sealed sternum. A rigid upper abdomen, even during full exhalation, indicates a braced solar plexus. The inability to release the back of the neck when lying down points to suboccipitals on alert. When you learn to read these signatures, diffuse pain finds a precise location. Persistent fatigue gains a local origin. Creative blockages are traced to a specific somatic entry point. The map stops being a concept and becomes a navigable territory, where each zone holds the specific key to patterns that have been operating for years, without ever being named or touched in the right way. To release the first portal, place the palm of your hand over your sternum with a pressure of 3 out of 10, firm enough to feel solid contact, but still light enough to speak normally. Maintain this pressure for 2 to 3 minutes while extending the exhalation to twice the length of the inhalation. 4 seconds in, 8 seconds out. The prolonged exhale activates the ventral vagal circuit, disarming the protective reflex and signaling to the brainstem that the territory is safe enough to let go. You will know the tissue has released when a spontaneous sigh arises. Warmth spreads beneath your palm, or a sensation appears that the air finally moves below the clavicle. This is not imagined relaxation, it is mechanical reorganization. Myofibroblasts shift the orientation of collagen in response to sustained pressure, combined with parasympathetic signals from your breathing. For the second portal, locate the band 2 to 3 centimeters above the navel and apply tiny circular motions with your fingertips. Circles just 1 to 2 millimeters in diameter. The movement should be so small that it's barely visible from the outside. There should be no friction on the skin, only light pressure that gently glides the deeper tissue over itself for 90 to 120 seconds. The rhythm must be steady, almost hypnotic, inducing parasympathetic coherence through mechanical predictability. After a full exhalation, pause for 2 to 3 seconds before inhaling again. This brief window allows the nervous system to recalibrate its perception of threat. Signs of release include emerging warmth in the area, increased gut sounds, an involuntary sigh, or a sudden sense that the upper abdomen has finally softened. This process promotes interfascial rehydration, Interstitial fluid begins to circulate again between layers that were previously stuck, reducing local cytokines and restoring the gliding motion between fascial planes. For the third portal, slide your fingers beneath the base of the skull and hold gentle isometric pressure for 90 seconds. Just enough weight to feel the suboccipital muscles without forcing them to release. The release doesn't come from pushing, it comes from waiting. The tissue softens when it senses consistent, non-threatening presence. After holding the position, keep your hand where it is and move only your eyes in a slow diagonal direction, looking downward and toward the corners of your visual field for 5 to 7 seconds in each direction. This eye stretch releases the posterior chain through fascial continuity, connecting the extraporcular muscles to the suboccipitals, and biomechanical propagation to the diaphragm. When the knot finally releases, you feel your head rest with a different weight, as if it has stopped holding invisible vigilance. The grammar of touch follows precise physiological parameters. Gentle pressure between 3 and 4 out of 10 activates mechanotransduction without triggering a protective reflex. The nervous system interprets low intensity as careful presence, not invasion. A steady rhythm induces parasympathetic coherence. Abrupt movements signal threat, while small, consistent oscillations suggest reliable safety. A minimum duration of 90 seconds allows myofibroblasts to reorganize the orientation of collagen, while local microcirculation increases oxygen flow and removes accumulated metabolic byproducts. Biotensegrity explains why an adjustment in one spot redistributes tension throughout the whole structure. The body works like a tensioned tent, where shifting one stake alters the entire setup. A released sternum relaxes the jaw, because both share the anterior fascial chain. A free solar plexus increases hip mobility through myofascial continuity, connecting the diaphragm to the psoas, and from there to the hip flexors. Release is not a vague feeling, it is a measurable physiological event, verified through objective markers that appear when the autonomic nervous system shifts states. The first sign is a spontaneous sigh, a deep, involuntary exhale that signals parasympathetic activation. It's the body's way of showing it has exited defense mode and entered the zone of social engagement. Increased salivation follows a sign of visceral safety, because the digestive system only returns to full function when the brainstem perceives the environment as trustworthy. Warmth in the touched area reveals vasodilation, an increase in blood flow that only occurs when the smooth muscle in the vessels relaxes under the influence of the ventral vagus nerve. Shoulders that drop without conscious intent show reduced scapular tone, a release in muscle chains that were locked in chronic alertness. When the breath shifts from the clavicle to the abdomen, it confirms that the diaphragm has regained mobility, allowing air to finally reach the base of the lungs. These markers are not subjective interpretations, they are proof that physiology has truly changed. When the nervous system transitions from dorsal shutdown or sympathetic mobilization to ventral vagal regulation, your entire perception of reality is reorganized. Your voice gains more resonance because the vocal folds relax and the ribcage expands the space for reverberation. Your walk feels lighter because tension in the posterior chain has softened, allowing your weight to distribute more evenly between heel and forefoot. Your focus stabilizes on complex tasks because your mind is no longer wasting energy on background vigilance, freeing up cognitive resources for sustained attention. Creativity begins to flow again because the prefrontal cortex can only function flexibly when it is not subordinated to a brainstem stuck in survival mode. Deep sleep returns, because the body finally recognizes that it can drop its nighttime guard, entering delta waves without defensive micro-awakenings. Translating release into measurable functional gain is what separates a somatic technique from an empty ritual. You are not seeking temporary relaxation. You are reorganizing how the nervous system interprets internal safety. After working on the sternum, notice if your voice flows with less effort when you speak. After releasing the solar plexus, check if you can inhale deeply without feeling a blockage in the upper abdomen. Once the suboccipitals are softened, test whether your head rests with a different weight when lying down, as if it has finally stopped holding onto invisible vigilance. These gains do not take weeks of future practice to appear. They emerge in the same session. When touch is applied with presence and technical precision, somatic knowledge only becomes real when it stops being a map and becomes inhabited territory. You may intellectually understand that fascia records emotional memory, but it remains a concept. Until the moment you press into the sternum, wait for the sigh and feel warmth rising beneath your palm. Technique becomes experience when the body responds in a verifiable way. A map becomes a home when you recognize in yourself the signs of release described, not as belief, but as concrete sensation in the texture of your own skin. The fabric of self-healing stops being an idea and becomes accessible intelligence, responding every time you touch it with the right grammar. Margaret was 56 years old when she realized she could no longer take a deep breath without feeling her chest lock up, as if something invisible were pressing against her sternum from the inside. Doctors ruled out heart, lung, and structural causes. Yet the diffuse pain remained, along with the sense of pressure that woke up with her every morning. Decades of carrying the grief of a mother who passed away before they could make peace. Unexpressed affection that never found its way out had created a reflexive protection that stiffened her chest until it became an armor invisible to scans, but felt as a constant weight on her breathing. It was during a session of somatic release that Margaret first heard about the first portal, the sternum zone, where emotional memory crystallizes into physical rigidity. The therapist guided her. Palm over the sternum, pressure of 3 out of 10, hold for 2 minutes. Exhale for twice the duration of the inhale. For the first 60 seconds, nothing happened, just steady contact and elongated breathing. Then, near the end of the second minute, a sigh broke through, involuntary, followed by a wave of warmth spreading slowly beneath her palm. The breath dropped, not by force, but through the softening of tissue that finally recognized qualified presence. Her shoulders released without conscious command. For the first time in years, there was real internal space, not imagined but felt. Margaret's voice changed that week. It gained a resonance it had never carried before, as if her ribcage were finally available to let sound reverberate. Her presence became inhabitable. Her decisions were no longer reactive. There was no dramatic healing. There was reorganization. The fabric of self-healing responded when touched with precision, restoring flow where stagnation had settled, and movement where defense had crystallized. The body remembered what the mind had forgotten, that it always knew the way back to center. What changed for Margaret can also be sealed within you through verifiable markers. Breath naturally descending into the abdomen without conscious effort. Warmth in the sternum as a sign that vasodilation is active. Jaw softening spontaneously during touch. A less guarded solar plexus when gently pressed. These are not abstract signs of progress. They are somatic evidence that the nervous system has shifted states, and the tissue has recorded the change. To anchor this new pattern, create a repeatable signal gesture. Palm over the sternum, 3 long exhalations at a 1-to-2 ratio, followed by 10 seconds of silent listening, simply sensing what emerges without interfering. This ritual takes between 30 and 60 seconds and can be repeated each morning or whenever you notice your chest beginning to tighten again. When the old defensive pattern starts to return, use the return point, a short phrase like the center lives in the tissue, followed by a 4-second inhale and an 8-second exhale with an upright but not rigid posture. The body recognizes this path and returns to center because it has been marked, not just understood. The fabric of self-healing is not a theory to be understood. It is living intelligence, waiting for qualified attention. Gentle pressure applied with deep presence, a steady rhythm sustained for minutes, and breath that speaks to the vagus nerve. These are not mystical gestures, but a verifiable grammar that reorganizes somatic biography recorded in physical texture. Objective markers confirm the transformation: spontaneous sighs, warmth under the palm, restored joint mobility, and breath that drops effortlessly. Somatic transformation does not live in the realm of belief. It lives in the territory of concrete sensation on your own skin. Meister Eckhart once wrote, "God is not distant from the body, he is intimate within its substance, closer than breath itself." That intimacy was never broken, only forgotten. When you press into the sternum and wait for the sigh, when you touch the solar plexus and feel warmth rise, when you hold the suboccipitals until the back of the neck finally softens, you are not creating healing. You are peeling away layers of defense that were hiding the intelligence that always lived there. The body does not need to learn how to heal. It needs to be reminded that it never forgot. The thinking web responds when touched with precision, because that is its native tongue, the language it has spoken since before the mind gave names to anything. Rigidity becomes mobility, fear becomes internal spaciousness, pain becomes a reliable guide pointing exactly where deeper listening is needed. The body stops being a battleground and becomes an inhabitable home, a sacred dwelling where dense presence can finally rest without vigilance. Healing has always lived in your tissue. You just needed to learn the language it speaks. And now, with gentle pressure, long exhale, and a patient wait for the sigh, you recognize within yourself the path back to center. The web remembers, the tissue responds, and you, finally, inhabit. If this message resonated with you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. That helps us expand this field of knowledge to others who are seeking healing through somatic intelligence. I truly want to know how the fabric of self-healing is responding in you. Leave a comment below saying, "I awaken the web that thinks, feels, and heals within me." This affirmation seals your presence on the path of embodied awareness. Share this video with someone who carries diffuse pain, chronic stiffness, or unnameable fatigue. Someone who needs to discover that emotional memory has a physical address and it can be released. And don't stop here. Click on the screen and dive into another transformative video from this channel. Each somatic revelation awakens a deeper layer of your hidden intelligence. Remember, your body doesn't just store the record of your story. It is the web that thinks, feels, and heals.